we need to change our sexual model. This is what I'm going to talk about today from the perspective of a somatic sexuality coach. Hi, this is Liana. Welcome back to my channel. Here, I help you get your orgasmic intimacy. The reason I'm doing this video is because I've been watching a lot of podcasts, all focused, like the trend is now, around science. And when it comes to sexuality, especially when we look at women, but not just, we're looking at just the fertile years. It's as if, and for some reason, the fertile years of women in general, it's given up to a certain age. On an individual level, a woman's health might vary. That needs to be said. Also, from a scientific perspective, there are a lot of podcasts and there's a lot of information out there for longevity, lifespan, and yes, you guessed it, this is where I'm referring to Dr. David Sinclair's work, but not just. Okay, there are many other podcasts that look at hormonal health, cardiovascular health, physical fitness health. So all of these, not to mention that there are some podcasts that look at psycho-emotional health and also spiritual health. These are also important components in longevity. And it's a fact right now, people are living longer than they used to 30 years, 40 years, 100 years ago. So from that perspective, I'm coming up today with this message. We need to change our sexual model. I'm going to center this discussion around three main questions. The first one is, how long do you think, on a personal level, how long do you think you are going to live? I'm serious here. I'm also curious, not just serious. How long do you think you have until you die? I personally feel that I will live into my 90s. Long before I knew that it's the royal age to die, 96, I actually chose 96 years of age as my age to die. So I chose this in 2018. The Queen of England was very much alive back then. No matter what answer you have, here's the second question. What do you think is going to be your sex life after you pass the age of 30? And this one is especially for women, because there are a lot of materials out there that point out to the fact that women are not so fertile after they're 30. Their hormones are going to go down because they're going into perimenopause, some of them into menopause, and so on. What do you think is going to happen to your sex life? And most importantly, with your sex drive and sex expression? What do you imagine? And number three, the third question, up to what age do you think or imagine that people have sex? Pum pum, this one. This one's the toughest one to ask, but surprise for you. People in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s have sex drive and they have sex. It may not look like in their 20s or 30s, but they still have sex. And I'm going to come back to the second question. What do you think is going to happen to you sexually after you reach 30 or 40 or 50? Because every time we start to believe these trends and these statistics where people focus on the younger, so, teens, 20s, up to 30, and because that's the fertile years, and then they stop bringing data information around sexual engagement, sexual preferences, and so on. That's what happens in a lot of these scientific podcasts. You might start to subconsciously get the message, well, I'm no longer valid, gee. You might get depressed, you might get I don't know what. Well, newsflash. We are sexually active well above 30. Like women also, by the way. Women, when they're 40, they have a bigger sex drive than when they were 20 or 30. And that also happens because they start to get to know themselves better. Yes. And that's one of the reasons why I've seen a lot of takes on this, where women in their 40s are a good match with men in their 20s, because both of these age groups have a lot of sexual drive, urge, need, and they engage sexually more. So I want to bring this perspective here. We need to change our sexual model. Some people don't want to have kids. Some people, for some reason, don't meet the perfect or compatible partner with whom they can have kids. And this also happens. People that are both fertile, married people, they just can't conceive together. There's also a thing of compatibility. You know, two healthy people, if they're not compatible, they're not going to conceive. This has been the case for several people in my direct circle throughout the years. I've seen this, and it's so frustrating. So if we're going to limit, especially with the science trend nowadays, our sexuality just to our fertility, I say we're lacking an insight here into what we do with our longevity. What are we going to do? Are we going to be these sad, morose people that are not going to have sex because they're over 30 or 40 or 50? What a sad perspective. Jesus, I hope the people in this list, anybody new here coming, I hope that you start to think differently about this, perspective. And if you want to learn, or not learn from me, just learn about you, what your sexual expression can be above whatever age limit you feel that once you passed, you're no longer sexually valid, then there are a few resources that I invite you to consider. Number one, practices. Somatic practices. You need to land back into your body. Okay? Grounding, first of all, means coming back into your body. Whenever you start to understand and enjoy your body and being in your body, being with and in your senses, translating the messages that your senses and your body have for you, your sexual expression, your sexual moments, lovemaking, whatever you want to call it, are going to be more exquisite. That's number one rule. And for sexual practices and somatic practices overall, I've got a ton of those. And I'm working with people. Some people decide to do this just for a defined period of time, okay, several months. Others take it the long run, probably because they realize I'm going to be sexually active. I'm going to be spending a lot more time in this body of mine. So I need to start using a lot of the resources that are out there. And the way I've built my practices community is in a sustainable way. Okay, I've built it like a Netflix or an HBO or an Amazon Prime of somatic practices. They're audio, first of all, because sight is the first sense that will just take you out of your body. That's why meditation, eyes closed or almost closed. That's why a lot of people in intimacy, they prefer to spend most of the time with their eyes shut, not because they don't want to see the other person, but because they want to feel more. When your sense of vision goes down, your sense of touch goes way up. So that's why they're audio. I want you to hear me when I facilitate and guide the practices. And then I want you, at least as long as you're working with me, to start to intuitively tune into your body and start moving it, touching it, breathing into it, uttering to it, translating messages and paying attention to it more. Another resource that I have for you is sexuality coaching. Because sometimes our blockages or our hindrances might come from mindset. And in the case of mindset, I think a sex coach is the best resource that can individually support you to navigate your challenges. So that's why coaching is also a good addition to somatic practices. That one is for whenever you have the time and the money. It's not so accessible as the somatic practices, I will be honest. I can only take a few people in, and it's for the longer duration. So the costs are different. But the first resource, the practices, that one was designed to be for the majority of people. And last but not least, anything else that you consider useful for me. I have an ebook. I have online programs. Those are also video. They're in between the cost of the online practices and individual coaching. And you can also see, and you can also get into more, especially for women, the Women's Practices program, the most detailed one that I have. You get into a lot of resources around sexuality. That one is with Q&As, it's with practices. It is super fun because I get goofy in a lot of those videos. Sometimes when you learn new things, yeah, you got to go through the goofy parts. And I think it's a much better approach to go in those goofy moments with a coach within a coaching program than to experience them with somebody that you're actually attracted to, that the stakes are higher towards or with. So from that perspective, also great investment. And last but not least, you have a lot of other videos here if you want to simply get into my vibe and get more insights around sexuality. Those are cost-free on YouTube. So whatever you choose, I strongly recommend that you remember this message. We need to change our sexual model. We live longer. We live way past what is commonly referred as the fertility age span. So above 30, people have sex. Above 40, above 50, above 60, above 70, people have sex. So let's start reframing, especially for the younger generation on YouTube. Let's start to reframe our sexual model. All right? I would love to know what you think about this. And if you have any other insights into this, drop me a comment. Otherwise, I will see you in the practice community that's on Patreon. I'll see you in the programs. Those are on my website, and in coaching or in other videos. Bye.